Hi everyone. Welcome to Session 1 of Bob Bly's Ultimate Guide to eBook Writing Success, a comprehensive program to writing and selling eBooks for profit. I'm Katie Yackel, and I'm thrilled to have Bob Bly as our special guest today. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Katie. How you doing?
Great. And for anybody that may not know Bob, you're going to know him at the end of this hour, and you're going to have a new friend, I can promise you that. But I'd like to just give you a tiny snapshot into why he's so qualified to be talking to us today about ebook writing success. Bob is one of the most successful copywriters working today. He's an independent copywriter and consultant with 30 years of experience in business-to-business, high-tech, industrial, and direct marketing. McGraw-Hill calls him America's top copywriter, and with good reason. He's written copy for some of the biggest business names in the world, including IBM, Forbes, Network Solutions, Intuit, Business and Legal Reports, and many more. He's won, every award out there, he's won it. In addition to copywriting, Bob's a prolific writer. He's authored over 80 books, including The Complete Idiot's Guide to Direct Marketing and the copywriting classic, The Copywriter's Handbook. His articles have appeared in numerous publications such as DM News, Writer's Digest, Cosmopolitan, Inside Direct Mail, and more. And the reason for this call, the thing that's of most relevance to us today, Bob has published dozens of ebooks with some titles exceeding sales of $75,000 each. Bob, I'm so excited to jump into this.
Me too. This is just a great business for people who are interested in writing, and I'm looking forward to sharing it.
Great. Well, why don't we start with, what exactly is an ebook?
Sure. Let's talk about that. An ebook is an electronic book. That's what E stands for. And if you compare an ebook with a traditional book, the kind of book we think of when we go to the library, an ebook is made of nothing but electrons. There is no paper unless you choose to print it. It's a file on your computer, so it is completely electronic. A traditional book, by comparison, is made out of paper. And if it's a hardcover, also made out of cardboard or whatever they make hardcovers out of. The format for an ebook, there's two these days. One is a downloadable PDF file. The other is a Kindle file you can buy on Amazon. Now, Kindle is the main format for ebook readers. There are others, and we will in this series talk about what they are. Traditional book is usually available either in a hardcover, a trade paperback, or a mass market paperback. A trade paperback is a book that is the same size and dimensions as a hardcover. The mass market paperback is the small one you see at the supermarket or more commonly at the drugstore. Topics usually are different for ebooks than traditional books. Ebooks are on narrow, very specific topics with just one topic to an ebook versus a traditional book is broader in scope. So a traditional book might be a book on, let's say, I wrote a book, Katie, on direct mail once called Power Pack Direct Mail. An ebook might be direct mail for travel agents. That's what I mean by narrower.
Sure.
I give you another example. You mentioned my book, The Copywriter's Handbook. That's on all of copyright. But I have a book called, an ebook rather, called Copywriting for the Financial Services Industry. No regular publisher would publish that as a traditional book because it's too niched, it's too narrow. So if you like to write about very specific topics, ebooks are your choice. And what's nice about that, the narrower, I found in writing, the narrower your topic, the easier it is to write on, and the better your end result. When our friend Herschel Gordon Lewis has a formula, E squared equals 0. He says if you emphasize everything, you emphasize nothing. So ebooks give you a wonderful opportunity to take a narrow, small topic and dig into it to the nth degree, which is really nice. Ebooks are sold either on your website. You would put up small websites, also known as microsites, or landing pages, which are basically long copy sales letters posted on a server somewhere. And a landing page or microsite, unlike a traditional website, doesn't have any navigation, doesn't have a lot of interesting pages and features to go to. It's just a sales pitch, if you will, for the ebook. And the only thing you can do on that microsite is to either order the ebook or click away. There's no other option. The Kindle ebooks, of course, are sold on Amazon.com. The bookstores sell traditional paperback books, as do some other venues. For example, if you happen to write books on scuba diving, you would not only find them in bookstores, but you'd find them in dive shops. Amazon also has been selling for years paperback books. Page length is different. Average ebook, and they can range from a low of 20 to 30 pages to several hundred pages, a couple of hundred, shouldn't be longer than that. And if they are, you should break them up into 2 or 3 ebooks. But a typical ebook averages 50 pages. A nonfiction book averages, and some of them are smaller. You see a lot of books today that are 100, 120 pages, which is there is a trend today toward shorter books. But you also see some books that are 300, 400, 500 pages. But a typical nonfiction how-to type book is usually around 200 pages. So an ebook based on, typically in the ebook layout, which is 8.5 by 11 page size, there's typically 300 words on a page or so. So that 50-page ebook is 15,000 words. And you can measure that when you're typing in Word because it tells you how many words you have. A 200-page paperback, which has a smaller trim size, usually 6 by 9 or thereabouts, has 400 words a page, average, and therefore is more like 80,000 words. So in length, a traditional book is usually at least 5 times more in pure word count than an ebook. The objective of an ebook is what we would call how-to or practical instruction. It's supposed to teach you specifically how to do something. Traditional books are more for entertainment or information. If they're how-to books, they often, and this is a fault of theirs, but they often really only tell you what to do. You know, if you have an ebook, a traditional book. I wrote a traditional book 20 or 30 years ago called Dream Jobs, A Guide to Tomorrow's Top Careers, and we had 10 chapters on 10 different jobs. So we told them about the job, what people do, et cetera, but we didn't really go into the nits and grits of, you know, if you wanted to be in Hollywood, you should camp out on the director's door, or you should join this organization, or we didn't, you know, really tell them in a short chapter how to do it. An ebook would tell you exactly what to do, step 1, step 2, step 3. In terms of price, ebooks vary. On the low end, maybe $19. Most ebooks that I see today in the 50-page range sell for $29 or $39, and some of them sell for $49 or more. Typically, a trade paperback of 200 pages sells for $15 or $20. Obviously, there are some mammoth books that sell for much more. So what's interesting is that an ebook is only 1/5 the length, but it can often sell for 2 or 3 times the price. And the reason it can sell for more is because the info is niched, or in a narrow topic. People will pay more for specialized information than they will for general information, which is why that's one reason why ebooks command such a high price. and this holds true for anything, newsletters, any information product. The more specialized it is, the more money people will pay. The other problem with traditional books is ebooks. You look at an ebook, it's a 50-page PDF file. You really don't know what that should cost. So the guy asks for $39, almost $40, and you go, okay, if it's interesting, if it's an interesting topic and you can't get the information elsewhere or don't think you can, you'll pay that. But with a traditional book, you can't really charge $40 or $50 for a trade paperback book in most instances, because people base the price on what they see in a bookstore. And they're accustomed to going to a bookstore and finding a trade paperback book, 200 pages, for $15. So that you are limited in what you can charge. And you can imagine the profitability of the product. An ebook is made up of, as we said, electrons. So your manufacturing cost is literally $0. Versus for a paperback book, it might cost you $2 or $3 or $4 or $5 per copy to make, depending on what method of printing you use. Whether you go to a traditional book printer who may give you a better price per copy, but expects you to buy 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 copies. So you have to make a big investment up front of a book you don't know whether you're going to be able to sell, or you can go to a print-on-demand POD source who will print very few copies, no minimums, but you'll pay much more, maybe $7 or $8 per copy, could even be more. So an ebook is more profitable. Also, with a traditional book, you have to pack it in a box, ship it, and pay for shipping and handling. With an ebook, when someone orders your ebook online, your software, your shopping cart software, and I recommend for a lot of people, a good shopping cart is the number digit 1, oneshoppingcart.com. The software, oneshoppingcart.com, will automatically email a copy of the book to the recipient. So there's nothing for you to do. Not only is there no fulfillment cost, but there's no fulfillment labor. Versus in the old days, I remember selling physical books out of my basement of my last home, and at the end of the day, we would have all these boxes, and it was quite a labor to to carry them. We had to literally load them in the car, and you carry them to the post office, and then stand online while the order is processed. So ebooks are simpler to sell. It's a nice, neat business, and you don't have the cost of printing or postage or fulfillment. How do you come up with ebooks? One way is to what I call a book rework. You find a out-of-print book, and that's easy enough to do. There are, if you search book remainders on Google, you'll find places that sell out-of-print books. If you go to a used bookstore, you'll find plenty of good books that are out of print. Some rather new books go out of print very quickly these days because publishers, traditional publishers, really are not particularly savvy in terms of business, and they'll spend all this time and effort coming up with a book, and then if it doesn't sell terrifically the first 2 months, they get rid of it. Now, that's not always the case. Some publishers are more accustomed to keeping books in print for months or years. The first book I wrote, which was published in 1981, is still in print. But you have to have a source of out-of-print books, and a used bookstore is a great source. You can also go on Amazon and find a lot of out-of-print books. Now, what you can do is you can go to the author and tell him that you'd like to turn it into an ebook, and the author's not making any money because the book's out of print. So they'll often be very amenable to you just putting it in print as an ebook. Often they don't require any payment up front, or they might want $1,000, but a lot of time you can convince them to do it with no payment up front. and you can pay them a small royalty, 5% or 10% of net sales. And there you have your ebook without you having written it. This ebook, Super Productivity for Writers, in this case, this was a book I wrote for a traditional publisher. I wrote a book called Write More, Sell More, which was about how writers can increase their productivity and income, and it was published by Writer's Digest Books, traditional publisher, and it was in print for a number of years. And when it went out of print, I immediately scanned the book. I hate this jargony term, but I repurposed some of the content. I didn't keep it exactly as it was. I arranged it in smaller chapters, and I think ebook readers like that, things to be in little bite-sized chunks. So I arranged it in smaller chapters. I cut out a lot of the fluff. I tightened it up, and I created Super Productivity for Writers. I renamed it what I thought was a better title than Write More, Sell More. Super Productivity for Writers, how to triple your writing speed, sales, and income in 90 days or less. The lesson here, 3 lessons on this cover. Number 1, if you have revised your book, put second edition on it, or revised edition, or new updated edition. What I have found is that in the marketplace online, people are much more demanding of having your ebook be recently published, be new, than they would be offline. People walk into a used bookstore and they'll think nothing of buying a book on a topic that's 5 or 7 or 8 years old. But I have had many complaints in my ebook business, and this is the most common source of complaint, where someone would buy a book today where it was 3 years old, and they'd say, well, this has got to be out of date. And with many topics, the assumption that it's out of date is absurd. It's ridiculous.
Right.
This is a good example. Super Productivity for Writers, none of these tips are out of date, but if people see an old copyright date, they'll be less inclined to buy it, more inclined to return it for refund. So anytime you have a new edition, and you should do updated editions of your ebooks every couple of years or every few years, put it prominently on the cover. Second thing is the title has to be catchy. I don't say Super Productivity for Writers is the greatest title on earth, but I kind of like it. It has a snap. The word Super Productivity, at least I find it appealing, and this is one of our better sellers, so I can only assume other people liked it as well. And then the subhead should be more specific to what it is and what it does. How to triple your writing speed, sales, and income in 90 days or less. So that's one way. Find an out-of-print book and rework it, use the content, and rework it into an ebook. This is my favorite example. When I started in ebooks, this was the first ebook I did. And I had written a series of 10 articles or so for Writer's Digest magazine on how to make 6 figures as a freelance writer. They paid me, actually, $750 per article, so for the 10 articles, I got $7,500. Also, though, once the articles were printed, I made it clear in my agreement with them that once you guys print the articles, the rights revert to me, because they're not going to do anything with it. So the rights reverted to me, and I used to do nothing with them, so I would just put them in a drawer. Then when I got into the ebook business, I said, let me find some content, some writing that I could package as an ebook, and I looked in my files, and there were these 10 or 11 articles. And I just had a graphic designer, and you can see this is a very simple black and white design, put them into a PDF file, with a nicer design. I think he charged me, $100 or $120, and just really reprinted the articles as is, each one being a separate chapter. So again, we picked what we thought was a snappy title, Write and Grow Rich, because it plays off Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, and then a subtitle that describes exactly what it is: how to make 6 figures a year working at home as a freelance writer and have the time of your life doing it. And what's interesting is our whole investment in this book, since I had already written the articles, was literally the $100 that we paid to have it put in a PDF. And to date, this is not our best-selling book, but it sells decently. And to date, we've sold over $40,000 worth of this book.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and if you think about the reason I like it is otherwise those articles would still be sitting in a Pendleplex file doing nothing. So it's a way to get new life, new income out of stuff you write. And I bet a lot of people listening to this call have written some kind of content, special reports, articles that they own that could be easily repackaged into an ebook.
And Bob, just another huge benefit is this gets you and your name and your skills in front of, you know, potentially new people that may not find you any other way.
Yes, one of the ways I talk about in a book I wrote, I talk about ways to build your reputation as an expert in your field, and one of the chapters we say produce and publish information products like ebooks, like CDs, audio CD albums, like DVD sets, which I do all of those. But ebooks are the easiest and the quickest, and writing and disseminating information products does establish your reputation as an expert in your field.
Sure.
So here's one that was fun, and I've done a few of these. I wanted to do a book on software marketing. I had thought years ago of writing one for a traditional publisher, but I never ended up doing it. So now I said, let me do a book called the Software Marketing Handbook, and I always like handbook in a title, how to generate more leads and sales online and offline. And in this case, I didn't, well, I wrote a little bit of it, but I went to people I knew who were marketers, like our friend Ed Gandia, Ivan Levison. I think I solicited something from Steve Slaunwhite. I went to people who are expert in marketing of software and said to them, I didn't ask them to write anything for me. I said, do you have an article you've done that I can include in your book? So the labor for them was zero. They were all friends or people who knew me or associates, so they didn't charge me anything to reprint their articles, aside from credit in the ebooks, and I also gave them permission to take the PDF of the ebook and give it to any potential clients if they wanted to. I don't know if anybody ever did. So you can do what I call a contributed ebook, where you go to various people and ask for articles that you can make a book out of, and I always ask them for something they've already written rather than something they have to write, because the latter is a lot of work for them and may never come. But most people have, you know, even if they're not, they don't specialize in writing articles. Most people have a bunch of articles that they've done and can pick out something appropriate for you. This was fun. Cheap car tips and tricks. How to make your car run better, last longer, and cost you less. I did this sort of as an experiment, because cars are not the topic of that I publish on, but I just wanted to see, could you do something like this without writing anything and without having any expertise in the topic? And what I did is I went on websites where there is posted what's called public domain information, which means that there's no copyright on it. You're allowed to take it and use it any way you want as long as you credit the source. Most of this
and Bob, how can you tell if a website contains that kind of information? Does it say it right on there, or?
Most websites don't. So the primary website or the primary source is the U.S. government printing office. If you actually Google their location, Pueblo, Colorado, it'll come up. It's called something like the Federal Information Center, and they have tons of publications, and the government doesn't copyright these. In fact, on them, they say, this isn't copyrighted. You can use it however you want. Just credit us as the source. And that's what I did here. I literally went to their website, plucked out half a dozen articles on cars, because it's all information for consumers. So it tells you how to change your oil, how to get a fair price for a repair bill, how to save money at the gas pump. And I put them together, and we were able to create an ebook just from that. And you say to yourself, well, wait a minute. Why would anyone pay for that when you can get it free on the government website? And the reason is people don't know about it. The government is the biggest publisher of information in the United States, and they are the worst distributor, marketer, promotion of their information. They just don't know how to make it visible and how to distribute it. So lots of entrepreneurs take government content and republish it. Our associate Matthew Lesko, who has become famous, repackaging government information on how to get grants, how to get loans, how to get gifts. So his books will tell you, how to get $30,000 to start your own bakery or things like that. And it's all from government sources. And he's made a considerable amount of money doing that. So you can get it from public domain. Also, if you go to a used bookstore, any book published in 1923, so you got to get old books, any book published in 1923 or earlier is in the public domain. Now you say to me, well, then it's out of date. No, there's some topics that are evergreen, meaning they don't go out of date. My friend Fred Gleek, who's an email marketer, found a book on acting, how to be an actor, and everything in it is totally relevant today. So so there is information you can find in public domain. I found a set of books from 1919 on management advice for junior executives, and everything in it was relevant. I mean, I would update some of the language, but the content was is evergreen. Some things are not. Obviously, if you're talking about electronic communication, then that stuff ages in a year. But there's a lot of public domain information in used bookstores and at government websites, and you can make a product out of it. Here's another thing. This was a book called Scientific Advertising, which is very famous in the advertising world. And lots of people offer it on the internet as a download PDF for free. So I said, how can I get paid for offering the same thing they offer for free? And I did 3 things to it. Number one, if you look at the bottom right corner, it says, including the Lord and Thomas Creed. I added another public domain document by the same author, Claude Hopkins, to this book, and the other editions don't have that. And a friend of mine, Bob Martell, found that for me. The second thing is that it says Scientific Advertising Illustrated. I illustrated my edition with ads that support the ideas that are taught in scientific advertising. Because Claude Hopkins talked about ads and ad campaigns. He didn't have any pictures, no illustrations of it. For example, he tells a famous story about Schlitz beer, a Schlitz beer ad, which everybody knows, or almost everybody in marketing has heard these days, and he doesn't show the ad. So I found the ad and I show it. The third thing is annotated. Some of his techniques, he tells you what to do, but not how to do it. So I added some annotations that would explain, okay, here's what Hopkins says you should do. Here's how you do it.
I would add a whole new dimension to it, and for anybody interested in this, to have your perspective as a current master talking about, one of the grandfathers of this industry. It's just a perfect way to put a very exciting twist on this.
Yeah, so you can, again, going back to public domain, you can annotate existing books. So if you find an out-of-print book on making presentations, where all the material is evergreen, you can add sidebars and annotations about how to use PowerPoint and things like that, and bring it up to date that way. I like doing things that are in a list format. And what I did is I'd written dozens of articles for a publication called DM News on copywriting. Some of them were small little tips and things, but as I looked at them, I said, you know, some of these are on major ideas or concepts, bigger things. Some of them are my own knowledge. Some of them I borrowed with permission from other copywriters that I respected. For example, I explained in one article the 3 elements of a unique selling proposition, which was taken from Rosser Reeves' his 1960 book, Reality in Advertising. And I had a section on how to do the 4 U's, which I took and credited to Michael Masterson. So I collected the more important articles, and I called them the best kept copywriting secrets, which I think has a ring to it, the 17 most important things I know about writing copy that sells today. And again, it is a article collection, and the way it's linked or sewn together is that it's a list of articles, each one on what I would call a big idea. You can also, in addition to writing your own ebooks, you can hire writers to do an ebook. In this case, I hired a guy. I wanted to do an ebook on how to make money writing book reviews. And the title that popped into my head, which I think is good, is Get Paid to Read. But I hadn't done that many book reviews, and I wanted it to have more legitimacy. So I met a writer at a ASJA, American Society of Journalists and Authors, meeting. We were actually on a panel together, and he mentioned his book reviews, which was a big part of his life, and I invited him to write this for me. So I hired an expert to do it, and one approach to ebooks is to have expert-written ebooks. The other approach is to have writer-written ebooks. So if you want to write an ebook about raising gerbils, you can either hire a writer to do it, a freelance writer, or do it yourself and research it. Or you can find someone who owns a pet store and specializes in rodents, I guess, and have why you do that, I don't know, but you have him, you know, write it for you. So you can but in this case, this was an expert-written ebook. Here's what I call a process ebook. Katie, you've done this, so you're aware of that people use a certain formula to boost their books, their traditional books, paperback and hardcover, boost their books in the Amazon rating, so they go from number 6,242 to number 1 or number 3 or number 2. And a lot of marketers know this formula, but many more don't know it. If you've ever gotten a promotion that says, hey, buy my book on this date and you'll get a whole bunch of bonus reports, that's how that formula works, and there's more to know. So I had done it a few times. I wasn't the world's expert in it. Other people had done it more than me. But here's a tip. You don't have to be the world's expert to do an ebook on a given topic. You just have to know more than 90% of the people out there. So that perfectly describes this book. There's 10% of the people, there's some internet marketers who have done this many more times than I have and know the nuances even better. But 95% of the people out there don't know it at all. They've seen it, but they have no idea how to do it and what the numbers are and the methods. And so I was successful with this book. It was a good seller and still is, the Amazon.com bestseller formula, how to promote your book online. And it's based on me having taken a few of my books to number 3, number 2, number 1 on Amazon. And I'm certainly not unique in having done that. This is just another example of a book rework. I had done a book on selling called, I think it was called Magnetic Selling for Amacom. And this was one of my few books that didn't do so well, only sold a few thousand copies. And when it went out of print, I said, well, I don't want to waste this material. So I scanned it, edited it very tightly into an ebook-sized product, and we sell it actively online today. And if you want to see the website where we do this, which features a video of me, it's called zeropressureselling.com. Here, I hired a writer to write a book called Marketing Professional Services on LinkedIn, which is selling very well for us. And it's a niche book. Remember we talked about niche versus general. You go to the bookstore, and you will find books on marketing on LinkedIn. But this one is Marketing Professional Services on LinkedIn. And you could go even narrower and say Marketing Accounting Services on LinkedIn. So you can go even deeper. And this I hired a freelance writer to do, and she's also written and marketed her own ebooks, but she does some for herself and some for clients like me. And she was not an expert in LinkedIn, although she was on it. So it was a combination of her knowledge, which she had some, and doing research to find out enough to write this book. And I was very satisfied with it. It was very expertly done. Here's a fun thing. If you are in a particular business, I don't know, you are a landlord, for example, you have a lot of forms that you need to run that business. I think Katie's a landlord, I'm a landlord. I'm not a big real estate investor, but I have a few tenants. And what you do is you gather the forms that are used in that business. For a landlord, it might be an eviction notice, might be one of the forms. Or, I forget what else we use, a lease, model lease, for example. And this is a product I put together one day. I got the idea, why don't I take all the forms that I use in my copywriting business and put them together in an ebook called the Copywriter's Toolkit. And it says, make 100,000 a year as a freelance copywriter. Forms, checklists, model documents, and other tools you need to succeed as a freelance copywriter. And this is very popular. We originally sold it at $79, which is a high price for an ebook. And then as the economy worsened and I wanted to make it more affordable, I did drop it down to $49, and I think I'm going to leave it at that. So, but it sold well at $79. So forms have a high perceived value, because you can make the argument that if you were to hire an attorney to just do one of these forms for you, it cost you hundreds of dollars. And here you're getting dozens of the forms you need for under $50. So it's a good deal. It works out to about $1 a form, as I recall. We have 5 or 6 dozen forms in there. And here's just the table of contents, which shows all the forms, and these were all existing. I did not make up or write a single form for this ebook. It was all the things I already had. And there's nothing I love better than recycling content I already have and selling it as at a profit.
Yeah, that's
I mean, it's the
formula.
It's the best way to go. And here, so think about, what do you have? If you guys are writers, I bet you have more than you think you do. It's really a question of digging into your old files, and you should never throw away anything. And if you have been throwing away content, keep it now. But in today's modern world, it might mean a real careful search of your hard disk, and there might be treasures there. So you need to look. And here's just one of the forms. This is my fee schedule for my copywriting business. And that's just one of the dozens of forms in there. I think there's a hierarchy when you're writing ebooks. At the bottom of the hierarchy are facts. So if you say in your book on how to be a copywriter, there are over 30,000 professional copywriters in the United States today, and I'm just making that number up. That's just a fact. It may be interesting, but it's not that useful to the writer. I would include stuff like that because it sets the background for it, but that's the kind of writing you expect in a newspaper, just the facts. The next higher level is what we call what to do, where you tell someone what to do. So you might say, if they're advertising a local dry cleaning store, try advertising your dry cleaning store on Matchbox covers or on restaurant placemats. And people do advertise on restaurant placemats. So that's a good idea, But you just told me what to do. You didn't tell me how. How to do it would, as it implies, or would, as it says, be how to do it. Look in the yellow pages. Use Google. Find restaurant mat advertising companies. Contact them. Get a rate card. Typical measurements are this by this. Artwork has to be in one color only. Here's how much text you should have in a typical unit. Here's the best offer you should have. Do you send them to your location? Do you put your phone number in? Do you send them to a website? So you tell them how to do it. Now, and that's where the level that most ebooks and other how-to content lives at, and that's very more than adequate. How to do it. That's what people want. But there's a higher level that you may have heard this expression. It's kind of a new expression called done for you, which just as it says, means they actually did the work for you. And even though it's a new expression, this has been around a long time. My father was an insurance agent, and 30 years ago, he would get mailings from marketing companies that showed ads, boilerplate ads for insurance agents. And they were generic ads. And all you had to do is strip in your name and address and phone number, and you had an ad ready to go. And so that's a example of done for you work. When you're writing an ebook, go through the process of what we call SAP analysis. First, what is the subject, number one? And I always ask, if you tell me the subject, I always ask, what about blank? So if you tell me the subject is plant safety, well, that's too broad a topic for an ebook. So I would say, well, what about plant safety? And you might say, handling compressed gas cylinders. Now that's a narrower topic that we could do an ebook on. So I always ask when you come up with the topic, what about this? What about blank? So you can make it narrower. And the narrower it is, the better your product will end up being, and the easier it will be for you to write something really valuable. Step number two is analyze your audience. What is their job title if you're going to a professional audience? For any audience, what is their education and background? How interested are they in this topic? For a business audience, what's their job function? What's their experience? How technical are they? If you're doing something on computers, are you going to a hacker-type audience where they're expert, or are you going to the average woman or man where they are a little bit computer phobic and they don't know much about computers? So who is the audience? And then what's the purpose of the ebook? Is it to change their belief? Is it to change their thoughts, create awareness, change their opinion, create a new attitude, get them to take an action, which is usually part of it? You're not only telling them how to do something, you're motivating them to do it because you know that it's good for them. And the other one would be, again, teaching how to do something. That's the primary purpose of an ebook. If you're writing tricks of the trade, the breath test. Without taking in a big breath, this is used to determine whether a sentence is too long. Without taking in a big breath, read your sentence aloud. If you run out of air before you get to the end of the sentence, it's too long and should be broken up into 2 or more sentences. The screen split. No matter what device you're on, if your text that you're writing fills up a whole screen, it's way too long, and you should break it into multiple paragraphs. The gist test. This means that, and this was invented by Kurt Vonnegut Jr., the writer, and in one of his novels, the scientist character, Dr. Felix Honecker, says to the other characters, if you can't explain what you're doing to a 12-year-old, you don't understand it yourself. So give it to someone who's not an expert in the topic and have them read it. And if they get the gist of it, then it's clear enough. But if they say, I don't really know what this is about, you've got to go back and rewrite. Search and find. You want to use subheads, bullets, indented paragraphs, lists, boxes to make the copy scannable and make it easy for people to find the information they want. It's better for an ebook to divide it into many smaller sections than just a few big ones, because people want to be able to look at the table of contents and find just the information they need. So we always have a long table of contents. Often our sections are just a page, page and a half. Reverse proofing, if you're tired of reading your own copy, but you need to proofread it, read it backwards. Doing so forces you to focus on each word and will help you catch typos. And we talked about this before, targeting. Not plant safety, but what about plant safety? Make it as narrow as possible. You want to have in your ebook a personal tone. Here's an instruction manual with an impersonal tone. It says the operator's workstation acts as the interface between the operator and the processes being monitored and controlled. It is often referred to as the human interface to the process. Well, it may be accurate, but it's very off-putting. So when you're writing ebooks, you want to have a much more personal tone. And here's an example. Module 1, getting to know your workstation. Your job is to monitor and control processes in your plant. Your operator's workstation can help you do that job better and faster. So strive for a personal, friendly tone. I've heard it expressed that you want to sound like a friendly teacher looking over the student's shoulder. Our friend Joe Vitale, not Joe Vitality, although he has a lot of vitality.
He's got a lot of vitality.
Yes, he does. Says many writers, especially beginners, feel they have to impress people with their knowledge of big words and complicated sentences. Don't do it. This isn't you. It's some distorted image of what you think a writer should be. Write simply, and your style will rise and flow within you, from within you, and I think that's good advice. Here was something from an ebook that someone showed me on training and learning. And what's wrong with this? Well, many things, but you look at it, it's a big chunk of text, and you're put off. So you want to use short paragraphs and break long paragraphs like this into multiple paragraphs. And you'll notice, by the way, that this is very jargony and goes on and on. You can read it. I won't read it to you, but it goes on, and it seems like it's competently written. It's certainly small words and it's clear, but you can't exactly tell what the point is. So here was a rewrite one of my students did, and I thought it was much stronger. Again, you can read this, and you know, it's direct to the point. Now you can master learning with ease. How? By making full use of certain mechanisms built into your brain that help you acquire knowledge and skills. Here are what I see as the 5 most common ebook writing mistakes. Number 1 is laziness. The writer doesn't do his or her work. This was from an ebook, first draft of an ebook I paid someone to write for me. And the topic was postcard marketing. And the first draft said, how much does printing postcards cost? Unfortunately, there's no good answer to this question. Already that's a red flag. There is a good answer. So that's already a problem. Depending on whether you use full color, black and white, black on white, bleeds, die cuts, odd shaped postcards, how many you order, and any number of other variables, you can spend anywhere from 3 cents per postcard to $1 or more. That's too big a range. You want to show 3 to 5 cents is for a black and white postcard. 10 to 40 cents is for a color postcard. You want to be much more specific. Then the next draft was better. Instead of saying there's no answer to the question, what do postcards cost to print, the writer gave the URLs of 3 websites of companies that specialized in postcard printing and told the reader to Google. Then she told the reader to Google postcard printers for more information. Well, that's fine, except one thing. The reader has paid us for a book that is supposed to give the information, not refer her to the internet for it. If she has to look at Google, then what does she need us for? So you should present the information, not tell the writer, go on Google and find it. It's okay to suggest other websites or Google, but only after you have presented the information the reader needs. I would have given in a table a summary of the average printing cost for various sizes and formats of postcards and paper stocks instead of forcing the reader to look for it. Mistake number 3 is logical contradictions. This is also from the first draft of an ebook someone wrote for me on web metrics. And it says, by having a product on the internet, you have no overhead to worry about. All you have to do is have the product available for fast download for the customer. By watching your overhead, you can increase your profit margins. Wait a minute. If you have no overhead in the first sentence, what are we why are we watching our overhead? It's a total logical contradiction. It doesn't make sense. Watching your overhead can influence product pricing, but we just said you have no overhead. So something's wrong here. This was from the same ebook, a paragraph on web metrics. And not only is it rambling, but it doesn't say much about web metrics. And you can read it. I won't read it to you because it's long, but you can see that it's just sort of saying the same thing over and over again and not getting to the point. Not realizing words have meaning. This was from something, I forget exactly what it was. I think it was a financial ebook on how to, and it was a section on how to collect past due bills. So he says, the client owes you money. He has not responded to your call or emails. You must assume at this point that something is wrong. Well, I could be, obviously. Here's what I suggest. Find out whether they are not responding to your calls or emails, ? That's not a question. It's an instruction. You need to collect on the money that they owe. That's pretty obvious. Your client did sign off on your work, agreeing to pay you, and the company still owes you money. Importantly, this client may have done work for you in the past. No, you did work for them, so he wasn't watching, and this was handed in to me. Don't lose your client by being too aggressive, nasty, or rude. You must reach them in a manner that will make everybody happy, and I'm not sure what that means either. This was my favorite. I hired a writer for one of my websites. I have a website on chemistry called mychemset.com, and I asked the writer to produce an article on careers in chemistry. And one of the sentences was, if you want a career in chemistry, you should study chemistry in school. Which,
brilliant.
Yeah, which I thought was a brilliant line, but you're going to laugh at this one. My favorite line of all was, chemistry is a good career for people who are fond of atoms.
Oh, no.
That cracked me up. So, you have to think about what you're writing, and I think sometimes that people who are not experienced book writers, whether it's ebooks or regular books, because it's a longer document than they're used to writing. A lot of our listeners are used to writing email marketing or used to writing direct mail sales letters that are 2 or 4 or 8 pages. But these are long 50, 60-page pages, and just because it's long doesn't mean that you can slip and slide. That's the tendency. When a document is short, it's very tightly written because each sentence is more visible. But people are very cognizant of when you make slip-ups and mistakes or say absurd things in a book, and you will hear about it. So let's say you want to do this. There's a couple of ways that you can write ebooks for other people and get hired to write ebooks. One is to approach people that are ebook marketers. That's so easy to find. You probably get emails every day from people who are information marketers. If not, it's easy enough to get them. There's so many of them. Joe Vitale is one. Fred Gleek, Early to Rise. AWAI is an information marketer. So you want to go to information marketers that publish ebooks and approach them and ask if they use freelance writers. I heard one information marketer who has a huge operation told me he literally has dozens of people who write for him, not full-time, 40 hours a week, but dozens of people he turns to when he needs something written. So the information marketers have a huge need for content. Now, it may not always be emails. They might say, well, I need an autoresponder email series, or I need articles for my e-newsletter, or I need a 500-word article for my blog. So there's multiple opportunities. I wouldn't limit myself to writing ebooks, but certainly if you approach those marketers and tell them your credentials, and always say that you are AWAI trained, or I see this more and more in people who approach me, and when I see it, I'm more inclined to pay attention. So I would mention that certainly. The other way to do it, there are a couple of websites that post jobs for freelance writers, and a lot of those jobs are ebooks. The biggest one is Elance, ELANCE.com, elance.com. And the other one, the big one, and there's a few others, but the other big one is Guru, GURU.com. Now, how do you make money with ebooks? In the next two sessions, we're going to show you the ways to make money with ebooks, so we're not going to cover that much now. But in terms of ghostwriting them for people like me, some people pay in the hundreds of dollars for an ebook. Some people pay in the low thousands, and by low I mean low, $1,000, $1,200. Some people pay $500 or $700. So you don't make a fortune by writing ebooks for other people, but it's a good practice so you can get into ebook writing and publishing for the day that you're going to do your own, and there's more money writing and selling your own ebooks than writing for other people. But it's a good way to get experience in a portfolio where you have ebooks that you've done for other people, and you learn the craft. And so I recommend doing that. And I have a lot of writers who do just that thing. They start with me, they write a few ebooks, and then I encourage them. I say, why don't you try one on your own? And they'll tell me, oh, I did that and I made thousands instead of 1,000. So it's a good first step to write ebooks for others. Also, you might be able to negotiate a royalty with your client. Most ebook publishers don't pay a royalty. I do. I pay 10% net royalty with some caveats on there, but that's another possibility. So what I would say is that it's a ebook writing, though, is a craft. It's people tend to discount it because in some ways, when you're doing it for other people, the pay is not spectacular. But don't treat it that way. I once hired a writer who handed in, I hired him to write an ebook, and the next day he handed it in to me, and it was terrible. And I have to guess that he just pasted together some material from other sources, whether his or someone else's, because you can't do it that fast. And when I said to him, listen, this is nothing that we discussed. You got to do what we talked about it, because it was so off base. He became abusive. I hired him on Elance. He kept the first half of my fee, and Elance makes it hard to complain about that. And he was very nasty and sarcastic and used foul language with me. So I do see a lot of ebook writers with bad attitudes. So conversely, if you have a good attitude, if you want to help the client, and you say, hey, I'm getting paid when I'm getting paid, I'm going to do the best job possible. And I've always done that in all my writing, books. Sometimes I've been paid very small advances, even with copywriting clients. Usually at this stage of the game, I'm well compensated. But earlier in my career, I ended up taking some jobs for what people would call chump change. But once I did it, I didn't complain about it anymore. I may not have been happy that I was getting so little money, but I didn't say, all right, I'm going to screw the client by not putting much work into it. I always did and always do the best job I can. And if you can always do the best job you can on an ebook or anything else you write for a client, it's going to hold you in good stead in a lot of ways. Your reputation will grow. You will be recommended. Your rates will be able to be raised, and your client will refer you to other people. So I have one ebook writer who's my top ebook writer, and I can't tell you how many thousands of dollars worth of work I refer her to. And it's just because she does the best job. and she's at a higher rate than the other writers because she's proven herself to me. But even when we started her at a lower pay scale, she always did a meticulous job. And that's what you have to do. Do the best you can. So you can write better. This is a little poster I use in my writing seminars I teach to corporate clients. Just did one to General Electric last week. You can write better if you want to. You put the reader first. You think what you are writing is important. You can think clearly, and you do one more draft. In other words, take it to where you would normally take it, and then run it through the computer one more time. And I want to thank you for your attention on this session. You've been a great audience.
This is fantastic, Bob. Thank you so much. There's so much here, just from arming our listeners with so much ammunition to take to their clients. The list of possible things that their clients could write ebooks about. So many things that they can do themselves. It's really fantastic. And I'm looking forward to our next session where we're going to focus more on writing ebooks for ourselves as businesses, correct?
I am going to show our audience how to, like you said, writing ebooks for a business. Basically, it's getting into it's writing and selling information in the form of ebooks, in this case, information online. It's internet information marketing. And I'm going to show you and I'm going to show you a model for doing it. It is not difficult to follow this model. And when you do this, this is where your income will really rise. I mean, I make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year using this model, and I only work at it, a couple hours, a few hours a week. I hired a part-time assistant who does the drudge work, and I just do the fun work. And I can't think of a better supplement for a copywriter in terms of income than marketing and selling ebooks online.
Fantastic. Well, we're looking forward to it, and thank you so much, Bob.
Thanks, Katie.